Okay, so we want to reproduce and fully dimension this figure in AutoCAD. We can begin by drawing in the center lines at the bottom. So I can get center line here, and then maybe I can start from 10 and maybe 20. Then I don't know, as long as possible, let's say 400. And now I want to draw another center line which is placed at some distance, 13 millimeters from this one here. Okay, and I want both of them to be parallel to each other. So I could use offset, so OF for offset, and I want to offset through a distance of 13. So enter. Now I can select this and then choose the upper side by clicking. Alright, and now I want to draw a vertical center line, so I can still use my what I'll do is I'll switch the layer to am_7. If you don't have it in here, you can always go to here, mechanical layer properties, so you can click here and then uh, you can click on new layer here and then maybe create your own layer. So let's say center, and then you can click on this color box here and change the color to some color like this so that it's consistent with what we have. So I'll click on that, and then I can come to under line type. You click on it and then you choose center. There should be center here, so this is the one. Okay, so in here you can select the line width of your preference, and then we are good to go. Okay, and then once you are done, you can okay that. I'm leaving mine on default, so we can now okay that. All right, so and then so if we click in here, you'd see that we can switch. So 0 am7 and then center. I would keep on using the am_7. So now I'll draw a vertical center line. Let me turn on the ortho mode like that. I don't know, let's say 250, then enter. Okay, so that's all. That's fine. So what I want to do next is I want to draw some more center lines. So I want a center line that propagates or start from here, and I'll turn off the ortho mode and the angle here. So the center line makes an angle of 60 degrees to the horizontal or 30 degrees to the vertical. Okay, so for the length, let me make it as long as possible. Okay, so I need to make sure that the angle in there is 60. Okay, all right. So I have that in place, and then I have another center line, which is 25 millimeters away from this vertical, right? This one. So again, so center line, and then perhaps I can track at some distance, which is 25 millimeters to the right of the vertical, this one here. So I could offset, so OF and then enter, and this time I want to offset through a distance of 25. So I can click on this and then click on this right side. All right, I would click on it and then get this graph and minimize the height. maybe by 90. Okay, now this intersection here is the center of some of the visible edges of the tangential curve. Right, so here we have a circle. So let me switch the layer to 0. Okay, so let me choose the center diameter method, and this intersection is the center of the circle to be drawn. So I'll click that intersection, and then the diameter required is 23, so 23, and then enter. Okay, so center diameter method again, and now the same center, and this time I want the diameter to be 60. Okay, so that is what I have. What I'll do is I'll select all of these, and then I'll mirror them. So MI for mirror, and click here and click anywhere on this line. That is my center line. Okay, and then no. Okay, so that will give me the other portion, and then I have a boss somewhere around here, and the center of the boss is some point which is 96 millimeters away from this point. Okay, so before I locate the center of the boss, let's switch the layer to AM7, and then we go to the arc method and we'll use center, start, end. So we'll click on that. Now this point here is the center, and then the radius where we want to start, that should be 96. So I put in 96, and then I can draw this into place. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll switch the layer back to 0, and then I'll go for the center diameter method to draw circles. This intersection is the center of the circle, so I'll click on that. The diameter is 13, and there is another circle there, so make sure you get the required center, and then the diameter of the boss here should be 26. So what I'm doing is pressing down on the arrow key and then select the diameter method and then enter. So the diameter should be 26, and enter. All right, and there are 3 of them, so and those 3 are aligned horizontally. So I'll select this and select that, and then I'll go to CO, hit enter. That's for copying, and then I want to copy them by their center, which should be this point. And now because they are placed horizontally, I would put on the ortho mode to make sure that I'm moving only horizontally. And then there is a copy here, so I'll click, and then another copy here, so I'll click to position that. Okay, and then I can hit escape, so I have the 3 in place. And now I'll draw another center line, so I'll switch the layer to AM7 and then click on line. This center line is proceeding from this point here and makes an angle of 15 degrees to the vertical. So looking at where AutoCAD is measuring from, the angle that I'll need to put in will be 105. Okay, and then I'll hit enter. there should be a point on this center line where the center of the circle that I want to draw is going to be, and that point is actually located on some arc. So let's look for the center, start and end. So the center required would be this point, and then the radius is 127. So 127, and then enter. And now I can draw the arc. If the arc appears to behave this way, you hold down the control key on your keyboard, and then you can have it going in the direction that you want. So I now have located the center required. Now I have a boss of 32 and a drill of 18. So I'll switch this to 0, and then this is, let me be sure. So I have center diameter. So I have a boss of 36. So center diameter method, and then make sure you have the correct center, and the diameter here should be 1/8, and then enter 18. Okay, and then I have tangential curves to draw. So let's begin with this one right here. Before I continue, what I'll do is I'll go to layers. So click here on layers, and then click on this bulb, which is next to am_7. That is if you are using am_7 for drawing the center lines. So you click on it and it will go off. Now if you are using the center line layer that you created, then you should rather click on this one to turn it off. But because I am using am_7, I'll click on this and it goes off. So I'll go for circle, and then what I want is tan radius. So I'll click on tan radius, and I want the circle to be tangential to this and tangential to that. So I'll click on both, and then the radius is 32. Okay, so now TR for trim, and then I'll trim this. Okay, so next I'll go for tan radius, and then I want to be tangential to this, tangential to that. Radius is 32, so I'll hit enter, and then I want to trim these parts off. Then back to tan radius, so I want to be tangential to this and tangential to that. Radius is 32, so enter, and then TR, and I trim this part off. And now tan radius, so I want to be tangential to this and tangential to that. So 32, and then TR for trim. This time around, I'll click on cutting edges, and then I'll select this and select that, hit enter, and then I'll click here, and that simplifies it for me. And now I'll go back to tan radius. So I want to be tangential to this and tangential to that. Radius is 35, and then I'll go for TR trim. I'll go for trim, and then for cutting edges, I'll click on cutting edges. So I'll click on this and click on that, hit enter, and then click this part to trim. Hit escape. So I'm left with this final part here. Okay, so now I have an arc which kind of begins. Let me choose layer 0. So I have a certain arc, center, start, end, which begins here. That's the center, and then the radius is this point here, which is 109. So I click there to start. Then I can draw this maybe up to this point just by clicking, and then I can go for tan radius. I want to be tangential to this and tangential to that, and radius is 32. And then let me now go in here and then turn off the AM7 or center line, dependent on which one you are using, and then TR, and I want to trim this part and that part. So and then one more thing before we are done, we need to trim this interior part, so this point and that point goes away. Okay, and this basically is how the drawing would look like. So I want to increase the thickness of the object lines, so I can go back to mechanical layer manager, and then in here, instead of default, I would use, let's say, 0.3, and then I would okay that, and I would come to line weight and turn it on, and I have this. If you don't have line weight here, you can go to customization and make sure the line weight is checked, right? So once you check it, it appears here at the bottom, and then you can turn it on like that. Okay, so I should go to tan radius, and then I want to be tangential to this and tangential to that, and then 32. Okay, and then TR, enter. I'll go for cutting edges, then my cutting edges should be this and that, enter, and I'll trim this part off, escape. Okay, so that's about the look of the work. Now what I want to do is let me turn on the construction lines, which looks like that. Okay, so now we're ready for the second part, where we want to fully dimension our drawing. Okay, so to annotate the drawing or to dimension this work, we would go to annotate, and then in here you can use these tools for the annotation purposes. But first I'll click on this arrow, and once this pops up, I want to switch from AM ISO to ISO 25, and then I'll click on OK. Right, so I think that one of the first things we can do is we can dimension, we can go for power dimension, and then from this point to that point, right? So I can click there to position it, and that's 25. So perhaps I can close the editor and hit escape. Now I'll click on chain here. So I'll click on chain, and then I'll be asked to select a base dimension. I'll click on this, and I'll be asked to specify the next extension line, and I want the next extension line to be located at this intersection, so that will position the second one, which is 25, away from the first. And now I can hit escape. Okay, all right, so what I can do next is I can do a diametral dimension, so diameter, and I can select this circle, and I want to position the dimension, somewhere there. So I'll click to put in the dimension, and then click away. I can close the editor, hit escape. So click back on diametral dimension, and then I'll select the larger one like that, and then I can position that, and then click away. And then for the angular dimension, I can click on angular here, and in between this and that, so I'll click on both of them. That should be 15 degrees. So click away, and then I can now click on this line, and that line, and that should be 30. And I can hit escape and go back to chain, and then for base I'll select this, and then I'll be asked to click or to select the next extension line. I'll click on that, and then the two will be put together like this for me. So I can close the editor, so I can hit escape, and then what I want to do next is I want to look at the radial dimensions. So that is radial dimension, so I click on radius, and then the radius here, so I can click on that. This radius there is 32, so I'll click away, and then click on this with a radius of 32 as well. And now I can click on this one having a radius of 32, and then for this I'll bring it to the bottom, and then the radius there should be 109, and I can have this as well, so that should be 32. I have that as 32, and I have this here as 35, and this one should be 25. Okay, so that's basically about how I would go I would dimension them. Now mind you, I have this radial dimension here, right, which is also that value, and then I should have this one here, right, which is also this value there. Okay, so that wouldn't be all. Now I have leader line, so I can click on leader line, and then I can click here, so I'll click and then hit enter, and now I want to type in 3 bosses, and then enter. Okay, so 3 bosses, and then click here on diameter, and then 26, enter, and then 8 drill of 13. Okay, and then click back on leader, and I would click on this one there, click and then enter, and now we type in diameter of 32 boss, and then the drill, so I hit enter, so the drill is 18, like that. Okay, so what I want to do is I'll select this, so let me double click on it, and then Control A to select the text, and then change this from yellow to by layer, and then click on close, and I'll select this, then Control A to select the text, and then in here change this to by layer. Okay, and this basically would be how would solve this example given right here.